Good evening, everybody. The Music Fan is back, bringing smiles to the faces, knowledge to the people, and most importantly, music to the masses. And as you can tell, there's a little bit of a scene change going on today. Now, I know I did promise one more video before I left my old room, but unfortunately, due to just having too much work to do, too much packing, and not enough time to actually sit down and record videos, I had to postpone that. Luckily, I've been able to find some time to make some videos before I move into my new apartment. Now, technically, yes, I have moved, but unfortunately, I can't actually live in my apartment just yet because I'm waiting for the other roommate to move out. So I'm actually staying with a couple of friends who have been kind enough to be able to share their apartment with me. This video and hopefully the next video will be recorded here. And then I have something special coming out Sunday, hopefully with a bunch of people, but I won't get into that just yet. But anyways, I am of course back with another Are You In? And this is the second of two themed Are You Ins that I've been going over. Last video we went over an album that has been highly rated by Anthony Fantano and one that is a little bit on the darker and more raw and powerful side of music. And we're going to continue that theme with Lingua Ignota's newest album entitled Caligula. Now, Kristen Hayter, also known as Lingua Ignota, is a neoclassical industrial musician from Del Mar, California. Her previous albums include Let the Evil of His Own Lips Cover Him in 2017 and All Bitches Die in 2017. The cool thing about Kristen Hayter is she is a classically trained multi-instrumentalist. She got her Bachelor of Fine Arts at the School of Arts Institute of Chicago and earned her Master of Fine Arts in Literary Art from Brown University. She is one who has been deeply invested in music for a very long time. Even in high school, she was part of various metal garage bands with her friends. The other big thing to know about her is that she is a survivor of domestic violence. She has been in many relationships that have been physically, emotionally, sexually, and psychologically abusive, including one that lasted 5 years. So a lot of the music that she writes can be described as survivor anthems. As you can see, it's not necessarily a survivor in the way of like I survived it and like I barely made it out alive. It's more to the point where I survived and now you're going to pay. Have you ever heard the saying, "Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned"? This is the perfect example of what we are talking about. She finds catharsis in her writing about doing evils unto people that have wronged her. And that's something that you're going to see a lot throughout this album. What I found interesting, and the reason why I wanted to check this out, was because how much praise Anthony Fantano had placed onto this album, saying that this was the most metal album that he has heard all year, and it's not necessarily a metal album. Yes, it has metal touches, but it fuses neoclassical, some newer forms of classical music with industrial sounds and with metal sounds. So looked into it, wanted to see what this experience was, and it is quite an experience. It does have a lot of raw emotion like Uboa's album did, but this feels a little bit more theatrical, a little bit more musical. There's a little bit more to grasp onto. That's not to say that the journey is not both powerful and interesting. There's a lot of very interesting arrangements on this album, and what a lot of it boils down to is looking at both the classical side and the industrial metal side. Something that stands out on this album is the way that she infuses neoclassical with industrial metal sounds. You'll have a song like Sorrow, Sorrow, Sorrow that feels a lot more classical, and it has some of the best vocals on the album. She is a beautiful singer, and it shows off on a song like Sorrow, Sorrow, Sorrow. A very understated song, but one that has so much emotion throughout the song because of just how beautiful the melody is and how beautiful her vocals are, especially when she gets to a higher pitch. The opening song, Faithful Servant, Friend of Christ, is and one that also has some beautiful melodies and harmonies put together and adds another layer of one of the other things that stands out on this album, which is the layering. This song starts off with a low drone and some higher string parts, and then eventually a cello melody comes in as the vocals join. And as the song progresses, more harmony parts and more vocal parts come in, adding some really nice layering and some dissonance at times, giving you an idea of what this album is going to be. It's going to be slow burns and very interesting arrangements. And from there, we can take a look at some of these other slow burns. So, like Spite Alone Holds Me Aloft is one that builds very well. I love the more dissonant piano parts that go through many tonal centers. The melody is really haunting, and the really nice thing about this arrangement is the percussion is very sporadic, but when it comes in, it adds some very nice layering to the whole entire song. And eventually builds to Kristen screaming, and that is another thing that you're going to realize on this album. There's a lot of very raw parts on here. Screaming on this song kind of goes towards a more doom metal style. Very slow paced, very bombastic, feels very heavy, which shows off where the industrial metal ideas come in and shows her background in the metal style. This isn't the first time, nor will it be the last time that you'll hear more doom metal style. But what I like about this is it eventually transitions into this layered vocals by themselves, and it's really beautiful how they can talk about spite and about killing them all. Just absolutely gorgeous. Do You Doubt Me Traitor also has some of that as well, and another one that has a beautiful melody. It starts very low in Kristen's voice and also starts with some nice chords as well as a super low piano bass part. It seems like Kristen's vocals are tired, as if she's just done with this person, which gives a little bit more gravitas to what she's singing and a little bit more emotion to what she's singing. Then around 3 minutes you get some violin, and then you get screaming vocals, which in comparison to Uboa's, which did feel like really powerful and really emotional, this feels a little bit more theatrical at times, but it still has the gravitas and the power behind it. She is a phenomenal screamer, and it cuts to the core of you when she's talking about, I don't eat and I don't sleep until I know that you are taken down. It's haunting. It's really haunting. And then kind of like the same thing with Spite Alone Holds Me Aloft, this song goes eventually into just vocals. It's a very interesting vocal part. It is one that feels like it's a barbershop quartet from hell. Very rubato, very tight chords that sounds like something that you would hear in a barbershop quartet. It is an interesting experiment, and for this one, it works very well. Another one that intermingles that industrial and classical sound is May Failure Be Your Noose. It starts off with mostly vocals, and it is one of the better melodies on the album. It's poignant, it's intense, talking about who's gonna fuck you if I won't, who's gonna be there when I won't be there, may failure be your noose, all these like just very spiteful and hurtful things to say to somebody who has wronged you. It does have this little bass boost which makes it feel more intense, and there's some very in the background screams that just work very well. What ramps this song up is eventually when you get to the Everything Burns Down Around Me. Absolutely beautiful, absolutely haunting. You get so many interesting melody lines in there, harmony lines. Works really well. And also in that part you have some intermingled screams which makes the eerie factor keep going. I got a friend. Also standing out there, you also get Butcher the World, which feels really bombastic. It starts off with this fanfare of like horns and timpani, but what is so powerful is the screams that are on there. It is just so powerful, so raw, gets you from the get-go. But then the really cool thing is it eventually does taper off a little bit and gets a little bit more atmospheric to give Kristen room for some beautiful melodies that contrast the first part in such a nice way. There also are some more straightforward songs. Days of Tears and Mourning, which I wonder if it is supposed to be a play of Day of Wine and Roses, not exactly sure, but this one has that doom metal feel, and it stays throughout the piece. It is pretty cool because a lot of these songs are very rubato, very free flowing, so it gives a more simplistic structure, even though it is still very powerful. That being said, there are some lackluster songs on here, and that's sometimes when it is a little bit more simplistic. If the Poison Won't Take You, My Dogs Will is one that is a little bit more simplistic, though it does have two distinct parts. The beginning part is a little bit more bass boost, and it is really weird because it also has this beautiful arpeggiated part by Kristen. It's effective, but it's also a little bit weird. And what makes it even more weird to me is just the rubato and very minimal arrangement. This one feels a little bit too long because it feels like it doesn't really go anywhere until you get to those parts where it goes back to that main idea. Franklin is My Many Flowered Crown is also a pretty stagnant song, and it's again because of this rubato idea. The melody is beautiful. There's a lot of really cool ideas and vocal riffs that Kirsten is trying to do on this song, and I give her a lot of credit. A lot of the melodies are really interesting because she tries to do a lot of different things. However, there's a couple of parts on here that just feel a little bit weird, especially like this throat singing where she closes her mouth and is still singing. It doesn't really work on this song because of just it not really going anywhere, where there's not a lot of momentum with the arrangement. It makes it feel a little bit just lackluster. And then Fucking Deaf Dealer feels a little bit more like an interlude than anything. It has some nice parts. I love the chimes. I enjoy the melody as well, but it just feels like it's moving on to the closer, which is a also pretty powerful song. I Am the Beast has some great parts of it, though it does take a little bit to get there. I do enjoy the use of harpsichord on here. I don't really hear a lot of harpsichord on music nowadays, so it's cool to be able to hear that. And the melodies are really strong and free-flowing as well. I do enjoy when you get some contrasting motion between the harmony and the melodies, and it does eventually build up to a more doom metal ending. So it has a great build and definitely does eventually pay off, making for a standout closer. A lot of these lyrics are very vivid ways of getting back at somebody. Like I said, these are survivor anthems, so it's talking in a way of wanting to do what you can to hurt the people that have hurt you and others. The vivid ways that she talks about what she wants to do to these people, pretty harrowing, very graphic, and not for the faint of heart. One that's a little bit weird, though, is The Poison Won't Take You, My Dogs Will. From what I understand, the lyrics are about a serial killer, Eileen Wormus, and basically Kristen's showing empathy towards her and her troubled past, stating that if they were friends, maybe none of this would have ever happened, or if she had known her back then and knew that she was this type of person, she would have done what she could to make sure that someone was there for her, so that way she wouldn't feel alone, and then not necessarily go down that path. I feel it's a little bit weird as a topic. I understand where it's coming from, and I know this is apples to oranges, kind of, but a lot of people got on Frank Turner's case for including a song about Nanny Doss, the Black Widow, and trying to show it from her perspective, and a lot of people thought that was not really the right way to go, right? So if you're going to call that out, I think you also have to kind of call out the topic of here, talking about a serial killer and trying to show empathy for her. Overall, this is a really cool album. I feel like it's a little bit more palatable than Uboa. Uboa is definitely more of an experience. This one, I feel like I can go back to different songs and listen to them again. Again, they're not necessarily the most accessible songs. You have a lot of songs that have a lot of different parts, whether it's the intricate melodies or the clashing of neoclassical and doom metal and industrial metal sounds, the slow builds. This is not an easy album to get into. But if any of these sound interesting to you, then I think definitely give it a shot. It is one of the more interesting albums I have listened to all year, and though I do find faults, I do find a lot of these songs to be interesting and bring something really cool to the table, whether it's melodies, if it's the raw screaming, if it's the clashing of ideas, if it's the slow burns. I think there's so much here that work so well. So with that being said, I'm gonna say give this album a listen. I don't think it's enough where you can say put on repeat, but I think this one also deserves a listen. In terms of what Anthony Fantano said, I do agree. I think both Uboa and Lingua Ignota's albums are some pretty standout albums, even if they are a little bit hard to digest. I still think they are some of the more interesting experiences that I've listened to all year. So that is my time. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you like or hate this album and your reasons why. Let me know other albums from 2019 that you would like me to review. Share this with your friends, and most importantly, subscribe to my channel. That way I know that you enjoy what I'm doing and want to see this channel become bigger and better for the future. I will be back with an RUN. This week, I'm unfortunately only going to be able to do 2 RUNs because I just don't know exactly when I'm going to be fully moved in to my new place. And because of that, I'm not going to be able to have access to my guitar or my piano. So instead of trying to rush and stress myself with a 5-minute theory, I'm just going to do 2 RUNs. However, this one also has a little bit of a theme this week. So the theme here is these are 2 of my most highly anticipated albums from 2019. I'm really excited to talk about these, and there might be some special guests on the second one, but you'll just have to keep watching. So until then, this is The Music Fan, and I'm signing off.